in the middle of the 19th century was one of the most turbulent periods in the world's history. At the same time, throughout the world, followers of diverse religions perceived that humanity was on the edge of a new stage in its development, and many prepared themselves for the imminent coming of a promised one. On a pleasant spring evening in 1844, in the city of Shiraz, a conversation took place between two young men, Sayyid Ali Muhammad and Mullah Hussain, that heralded a new era for the human race. The two men spent the entire night immersed in conversation. Mullah Hussain was astonished to discover that each of the characteristics he was seeking in the promised one was manifest in this young man. Before departing early the next morning, his host addressed him with these words: "O thou who art the first to believe in me, verily I say, I am the Bab, the gate of God. 18 souls must, in the beginning, spontaneously and of their own accord, accept me and recognize the truth of my revelation." Within several weeks of the Bab's declaration, 17 more people had, by their own spontaneous efforts, recognized his station, had renounced the comforts and security of their old way of life, and, detached from all attachments, had set out on the mission of spreading his teachings. These first 18 followers of the Bab became collectively known as the Letters of the Living. The new faith of God was established upon this earth. The Bab was the symbolic gate between past ages of prophecy and a new age of fulfillment for humanity. His primary purpose was to awaken the people to the fact that a new period in human history had begun, one which would witness the unification of the entire human race and the emergence of a world civilization of spiritual and material prosperity. This great day would be established through the influence of a divinely inspired educator. The Bab explained that the new manifestation would usher in an age of peace and justice. The Bab instructed his followers to spread this message throughout the country and to prepare people for this long-awaited day. The Bab's message aroused hope and excitement among people from every walk of life. Although a number of prominent Muslim clerics accepted the Bab, many others felt insecure and threatened by his growing influence. They denounced the Bab's teachings as heretical and set out to destroy him and his followers. Controversy raged in mosques and schools, in streets and bazaars throughout the land. To extinguish the flames of this new faith of God and to separate its founder from his adherents, the Bab was banished from city to city, from prison to prison. But none of the plans his enemies devised could prevent his influence from spreading. In every place he was sent, his grace and the magnetic attraction of his personality won the admiration of civic leaders and townspeople. The Babis, shut off from their leader, boldly defended themselves against the full force of the state, which was summoned for their destruction. Thousands of his followers, men, women, and children, suffered cruel and brutal deaths. The period of the Bab's banishment to the mountains of Azerbaijan, lasting no less than 3 years, constitutes the saddest, the most dramatic, and, in a sense, the most pregnant phase of his 6-year ministry. It comprises his 9 months of unbroken confinement in the fortress of Baku and his subsequent incarceration in the fortress of Herald, which was interrupted only by a brief yet memorable visit to Tabriz. It was in the town of Tabriz that the Bab once again proclaimed his mission in presence of hostile clergy who were bent on eliminating the Bab and ending his mission. The public examination of the mission of the Bab in the city of Tabriz afforded the Bab the supreme opportunity of his mission to assert in public, formally and without any reservation, the claims inherent in his revelation. The circumstances attending the examination of the Bab as a result of so quick an act may well rank as one of the chief landmarks of his dramatic career. In presence of the government officials and most senior clergymen, the Bab gave, in ringing tones, his celebrated answer to the question put to him by the president of that assembly. "I am," he exclaimed, I am the promised one. I am the one whose name you have for 1,000 years invoked, at whose mention you have risen, whose advent you have longed to witness, and the hour of whose revelation you have prayed God to hasten. Verily I say, it is incumbent upon the peoples of both the East and the West to obey my word and to pledge allegiance to my person. The convocation thereupon dispersed, its members confused, divided among themselves, bitterly resentful and humiliated through their failure to achieve their purpose. The Bab was subsequently sent back to the fortress of Herald. Despite his banishment, the Bab's popularity grew to such an extent that some prominent clergymen appealed to the government to have him executed. In 1850, Bab's execution in the city of Tabriz was ordered by the government. When the guards came to him on the day of his execution, 9th July 1850, the Bab told them that no earthly power could silence him until he had finished all that he had to say. Thousands crowded the rooftops that overlooked the barrack square in Tabriz, where the Bab was to be executed by a firing squad. In the intense heat of the noonday sun, he was suspended by ropes against a wall of the barracks, along with a young follower who begged the Bab to share his martyrdom. A regiment of 750 soldiers opened fire in 3 successive volleys. When the smoke and dust of the gunpowder cleared, the Bab had vanished from sight. Only his companion remained, alive and unscathed, standing beside the wall on which they had been suspended. The ropes by which they had been hung alone were severed. After a search, the Bab was found back in his cell, continuing the conversation with his secretary that had been earlier interrupted. "Now you may proceed to fulfill your intention," the Bab told his captors. Again, he was brought out for execution. After the first regiment refused to fire, another was assembled and ordered to shoot. This time, the bodies of the Bab and his young follower were shattered. This time, however, their breasts were riddled with bullets and their bodies completely dissected, with the exception of their faces, which were but little marred. "O wayward generation," were the last words of the Bab to the gazing multitude as the regiment prepared to fire its volley. "Had you believed in me, every one of you would have followed the example of this youth, who stood in rank above most of you, and would have willingly sacrificed himself in my path. The day will come when you will have recognized me. That day I shall have ceased to be with you." On the evening of the very day of the Bab's execution, which fell on the 9th of July 1850, during the 31st year of his age, the mangled bodies were transferred from the courtyard of the barracks to the edge of the moat outside the gate of the city. 4 groups, each consisting of 10 guards, were ordered to keep watch in turn over them. On the following morning, the Russian consul in Tabriz visited the spot and ordered the artist who had accompanied him to make a drawing of the remains as they lay beside the moat. In the middle of the following night, a follower of the Bab succeeded in removing the bodies from the moat. Placed in a specially made wooden casket, the body of the Bab and that of his young follower were kept in places of safety for the next 50 years. In 1909, after being hidden away for more than half a century, the Bab's remains were finally interred on Mount Carmel in the Holy Land, today entombed in an exquisite golden-domed shrine encompassed by spectacular terraced gardens and fountains. The Bab rests in conspicuous glory, a symbol of the triumph of the cause that he heralded over the fiercest of opposition. Throughout the world, millions recognize the Bab as the divinely inspired herald of the Baha'I faith and turn reverently to his writings to discover the resplendent light of God.